Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Glacé Film Club podcast. And yes, here we are once again to dive into a film, pull it apart, and let you know just what we think of it. And when I say we, it's not just me sat here on my own with my microphone banging on about some random film. Yes, I will be banging on about a random film, but I've got my compadre, film lover, man of cultural experiences and wisdom. It is, of course, Callum. How are you doing today?
Good. Yeah. It's the rain clouds have lifted.
That is wonderful to hear.
It's I can actually see the sky. It's blue sky, which is nice. I feel like I've been under some sort of like weird oppressive abyss.
That's got to be a good omen,
sounds
right?
Dramatic, doesn't it? There's places in the UK I read that Sheffield hasn't seen sun for 38 days.
Wow.
Although it's Yorkshire anyway, so I assume that they don't see sun anyway.
It's quite possible.
Very dark place. Yeah, I read that. Sheffield hasn't seen sun for 38 days, which is just frankly mad to me. And it's 2 degrees today, and there's blue sky. And it's quite nice.
Wonderful.
I'm currently in a wooden shack.
You've got your little hideaway film shack there.
Yeah, I know.
It looks like it could be a film setting of itself. You know, something like
some Twin Peaks type thing.
The Revenant.
The Revenant. Got a stack of pelts next to me
exactly.
that need to be gotten to New York to be made into fur hats for the emerging middle class. I went too historical there, didn't I? That's just like
that's what we do.
Geeky.
It's a film podcast, but we often find ourselves in history because everything is history.
The present is not. No, we're not doing that. We're not.
I'm sure we'll get into one of your classic quotes without realizing it at some point.
That wasn't even I was about to do the Ezra Furman thing. The present's nothing without the past, but I'm not. I just did it.
Well, you've said it now.
I've said it now, haven't I? Yeah, exactly.
And you are in that time of the year where school is out. What does the cultural corner look like in the capital at the moment?
I mean, what did I do? What have I done so far? I saw a really interesting photography exhibition at the V&A. That was good. It was marketed though as like a Walker Evans thing, but then there was only one photograph of Walker one of Walker Evans's photographs. The rest were other American interesting photographs. It was interesting. It kind of explored the sort of the margins and the spaces in between the two extremes of American society. It was kind of looking at yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But it was quite good. It was like looking at, photographs of spaces that are either contested or photographs of people within a contested space or the act of someone being not welcome in America. It was quite timely. It was very, it was quite a nice sort of like amalgamation of different photographs in that regard. And I thought it was quite cool. I bought a new bookcase from the British Heart Foundation.
That's nice. Talk me through it. How many shelves? What kind of wood? Size?
It's like a sort of dark wood. It's quite big. I think it's going to get all of my books on it. Last time I counted, when I moved house last summer, I had over 100 books. And the problem with, and I mean, I've got more books scattered around everywhere, but the problem with moving and renting is you never really sort of like put your mark down anywhere. So I'm always conscious of like buying books and then having to move them around everywhere.
It's a tricky dilemma. I had that when I moved as well. And I was like, do at this stage of my life, I decide that I'm just going to have a small, ever-changing book collection. And every time I move, I get rid of the surplus ones and keep a small collection and just accept that and be happy with it. But I couldn't resist the temptation of just that ever-increasing pile that you can look at and go, yeah, they're all the books that I own. And aren't I good for having them all? But it's obviously only leading one way, and that's to an unbelievably excessive pile of books that just gets bigger the older you get. But do you just have to accept that you just got to keep taking these books around to different places and just get more and more bookcases?
I quite like accumulating stuff. I do. I actually quite like having stuff. I'm not a minimalist, and I quite like the because the books, a lot of the books that I've got, you can't. I mean, obviously you can buy them still, but like some of them are expensive, and I've got quite a lot of academic books that I bought years ago. Books that I bought in the States. I've got a couple of books that I bought when I was in Porto as well, and there's just
memories
loads of,
as well.
Yeah, exactly. And like, there's just I was after a bookcase that would put them all on basically, and because the thing is, I still haven't unpacked. I've still got piles of my boxes just stacked up, just because I haven't bought a bookcase since I moved here, and now I finally have, and I'm gonna get everything unpacked. But I like having stuff. I mean, I've been watching quite a lot of the those videos online of like actors going into the Criterion studio, the Criterion archive.
Yes. Yeah.
And they pick out their 5 films on DVD.
Yeah.
I was in the BFI the other day, and in the gift shop, and I nearly bought an A24 T-shirt, and it just says A24 on it.
I can see you in that.
It was like 47 quid, and I was just like, I can't buy this. Like, I'd become one of those irritating guys. Like, I'd shave the rest of my beard off and just have a mustache, and be wearing an A24 T-shirt. I'm just like, I can't. No. So I decided not to get one because.
But it's telling the fact that you were close.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I was looking at all these DVDs, and I was like, the part of me was like, I want to buy like a really nice table to put a television on with a DVD player and have DVDs again, because I've got loads of DVDs already, but I got rid of quite a lot of them when we were moving house back in Blackpool, and it was just kind of like, I still have quite a lot of DVDs, but just not nearly as many as I used to. But it's just like the act of scrolling on streaming services, deciding what to watch. It's just an extension of your phone, isn't it? Quite annoying. And I hate it when you're doing the credits, and then it goes to a small box in the corner of the screen, and then you're being advertised something else.
Yeah.
It ruins the viewing experience, because I actually want to watch the credits.
Yeah.
Which is why cinema is the one.
Cinema is always the one, and we keep banging that drum, don't we?
Yeah.
You mentioned to me earlier that you've extended your viewing beyond your Curzon membership and gone to a big old screen in View.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, because I feel a bit tantalised by the notion of a new exciting watching experience.
I was feeling a bit. I don't know. I was feeling a bit sort of like, not necessarily low. I was feeling a bit sort of flat, and I wanted to do something that that would just be fun, basically.
Reinvigorate.
Well, I could have gone to the Curzon and watched something, but I just really wasn't in the mood for a deep existential pontification on something that I wasn't going to go and watch the history of sound, for example. I'm just like, I'm not in the mood to watch this deep thinking dissection of sexuality, or violence, or war, or love, or drama, or poetry.
You want a popcorn film?
I want
a flat white film.
I just want something that's a little bit silly.
Yeah.
I wanted some sort of thriller. And the Rip fell into this category.
Yeah.
That new Ben Affleck film, Matt Damon film that's on Netflix.
Yeah,
it's pretty terrible. But it was, I wanted something of that ilk. And the new Mark Ruffalo, Barry Keoghan film, Crime 101, that's out at the moment. The Curzon isn't showing it for obvious reasons, because it doesn't fit into, like, it's just back-to-back Wuthering Heights, Hamnet, and a documentary about Jeff Buckley. Like, that's the extent of the Curzon screenings at the moment, which again is all fine. But I went to the View, and then went to the it's called the Epic Screen. I went to the View Islington.
That already gets you excited.
I went to the View in Angel, and it was like 11 o'clock in the morning. It was me and one other fella in there, and it was like this massive screen. It's got about 900 seats. I mean, it doesn't, but it's massive. And it's like got recliner seats. It's really comfortable. There's quite a good gap between each person, so you don't feel like you're sat on top of everybody. It's got like Epic written on the side of the walls. You feel like you're on the command deck of the Millennium Falcon. There's like lights along the side
about
of this
to take
thing.
off.
Yeah, no, honestly, and it's like the trailers are like, and then this teenager comes out who presumably is paid minimum wage, and he reads like a script explaining how epic the Epic Screen is. Honestly,
working the crowd.
Honestly, I was like, this is brilliant. I wish, because the Lord of the Rings was being shown, the anniversary edition. It was the anniversary of Lord of the Rings, and they were showing the extended editions. And I wish I'd gone into that Epic Screen and watched the extended version of Lord of the Rings, but I didn't. But anyway, I went to see this Crime 101 film, and it was the exact type of dross that I needed. It was like this sort of thriller, crime, ridiculous. Mark Ruffalo's brilliant in it. It borrows a lot from Michael Mann's Heat. It's too long. It's 2 hours 20, but we're not reviewing that today anyway. But like, the point is, it was exactly what I wanted. So thank you, Crime 101. It was very LA. It was like this sort of like really cool, sort of like silky LA. Because all the car lights, all the engine lights, and the juxtaposed with the sky high rises, but then the burning sunsets, and it's the highways. It's like it's a city of quartz, to quote Mike Davis. There you go. But it's just like this sort of amazing light-drenched landscape, and it's like, it's just it's LA. I love that, those sort of like LA crime noir nonsense. That's why I love Bosch.
Yeah.
The scene. I don't
You're
love
a big
Bosch,
Boscher.
but I was a big Bosch. It was a lockdown. It was a lockdown thing. But that's the thing. The reason why I enjoyed Bosch, just because of the LA sort of like detective thing. And it delivered, and I was like, this is brilliant. I will definitely be going to the Epic Screen again for something probably more epic. But it was good to see this film on the big screen. It was on the big screen.
Yes. Yeah. It's a big
massive.
screen film. Big screen film. I tell you what, there's a lot to be said for the recliner seats. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy the sofa experience of Everyman and similar cinemas, but those big old recliners at View and some Odeons, fantastic. I'm there for it. I am there for it.
Yeah.
But that's enough chair review. We've got a film to review, Callum.
Too much armchair reviewing there.
Yes, nice. Very nice. That's the standard. Let's get into a film review rather than an armchair review. And could you please tell us, Callum, what we're going to be reviewing on this episode and what the film was about?
We went to see Is This Thing On? It premiered as the closing film of the New York Film Festival this year. Bradley Cooper directed it. The screenplay, Bradley Cooper wrote bits of it. So did Will Arnett, who plays one of the lead characters, sorry, and Mark Chappelle as well. Loosely based on the English comedian's life, John Bishop, who was actually given a story credit in the film as well. And essentially, it's a comedy drama that is sort of commenting on reinvention. It's more like juxtaposed, really. You've got Will Arnett's character, Alex, who is essentially finds a love of stand-up whilst he's going through a sort of pseudo-divorce. It's like they're getting divorced, but they're not getting divorced. They're basically they're coming to the end of their marriage, basically, and so he's discovered this outlet of stand-up at these sort of open mic bars in New York, and he kind of discovers it by accident. He wants to go and get a drink, and then realizes there's like a $15 or like a $10 sort of tab that you have to pay to get in. But if you perform on the open mic night, you get your money back, or you get a drink or something. So he kind of stumbles into it and realizes that just kind of by saying what's happening in his life in a very matter-of-fact way, it gets a few laughs. And then he ends up becoming quite energized by it and quite likes it, and then ends up going into this subculture that he never knew existed, because I think he works in tech or something. And he keeps going to this open mic night at the Comedy Cellar, and it's just so opposite to what he was originally doing, and he kind of was stuck in a little bit of a rut. Conversely, Tess is his wife, who's played by Laura Dern, who is brilliant in the film as well. She used to be a professional volleyball player, and now she gave it up, presumably to raise children, and she is now also kind of at the end of something, but also wanting to start something back up again. So she wants to go back and start training other volleyball athletes, and it's kind of like essentially a clash of. It's the end of a marriage. They've been together for a long time, and it's kind of run its course a little bit. But I think it's a comment on, essentially how everyone in their life gets to a point where they don't particularly like who they are, or they don't like who you are together as a group or as a couple. And I think it would have been very easy for this film to go down the route of, like, for example, like it could have very easily been like a Marriage Story style film that had Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson in. This idea of, like, this basically relentless shouting match, but it doesn't go into that. It kind of it comments on how the end of a marriage can be quite amicable, because there's a consensus and a almost like a contract between the two of them that, yes, I wasn't tired of our marriage. I wasn't unhappy being married. I was unhappy with what our marriage had become. I think that's a line from the film.
Yeah.
And it's a comment on sort of, in order to build something back up again, you might have to break it down a little bit. Fairly generous. Fairly, didn't 12 million at the box office. Is generally quite good. I quite liked the mashup of Under Pressure, the David Bowie Queen tune that sort of like runs throughout the film. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, it's Is This Thing On? A story about collapse, but then also a story about building something back up again. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Callum. Well, I'll start by saying that I thought the film was fine. And I'm in danger here of doing it too much of a disservice, because I think exactly what you're saying there, I agree with, in the terms of it could have fallen into that trap of, this is a film about marriage, and it being like an off-the-rails breakup film. A film about divorce. It could be an off-the-rails breakup film, or it could have been all this aggression, there could have been all this resentment in it. Whereas it's a lot more subtle than that. And I think that is a big plus for the film, because it's often a lot easier just to go, we'll just pump up all the drama to ridiculous levels and just throw all of this in there. And this is definitely more nuanced. And I like that about the film, because there's reflection in there. And you mentioned there where they're looking back on their marriage, but they're also looking back on their youth as well, and what they thought life was going to be, or what it was at the time, and how maybe the coasted through. And there's just a lot of conversations between the married couple, and there's a lot of introspection and discussing what their lives are and picking apart each other. And in some points it gets a bit argumentative, but it's more them trying to figure out where their life went or what they might have been missing and didn't address. And I like that because it feels more human, it feels more real. Like life isn't just these spectacular big breakups and then everyone moves on to crazy things and things like that. You know, there's a little more nuance to life with any relationships, friendships. And I think it does capture that nicely. My main problem with the film is that I don't think there's that much substance in any specific area of it, in that it's a film about a comedian, but it's proactively decided not to be a comedy. There are moments of comedy, and obviously we see him being a comedian, but it's definitely a drama. It's decided to be more about the backstory of the comedian and why he then went and stumbled into being a stand-up, because he was going through the divorce and all of that element of it, rather than it being like, oh, look at how this happened, but isn't it dead funny and isn't all of this intriguing and fascinating? So it decides to do that, and as I said, I think what it does with it is nicely nuanced and is gives pause for thought. But there's not enough of it. It's like there's not enough depth there, I don't think. And I don't know what I'm asking of the film. I just think that none of the routes it chooses to take, there's not enough meat on the bone there. Like I came away from it thinking like, yeah, it was nice and I think interesting premise, and it was a good premise, but there wasn't just enough to get your teeth into either way. And the fact that it's chosen to go down the drama route with a bit more emotion and depth, whereas actually it's not that emotional, or it doesn't carry that much weight. I feel like, okay, the backstory is that there's this couple who are going through a divorce, but actually they end up getting back together after a bit of introspection and discussing what their relationship is. But it's not really that traumatic, or it's not really that profound. And because they haven't gone down the out-and-out comedy route, I think it's just kind of tickles with a few little themes, and the plot's not fascinating enough to be like, oh wow, I can't believe all that happened. It's like, it feels like a film where the premise and the idea of it, based loosely on the story of John Bishop's life, which is mad in its own sense, sounds like a fascinating one to make a film on, but actually when they've fleshed it out, there's not actually that much to it, and I just feel like it just fell a bit short on a film that felt like, oh, that sounds good, but then afterwards it was a bit more like slightly underwhelming. So I'll come back to my opening statement and it was fine. What do you think, Cam? Do you think it actually went into any depths? Because we do like picking apart themes and seeing what the film gives us a springboard for, but I just fear on this one there was neither anything too captivating nor anything too thought-provoking.
I think the characterization was a little bit odd for me. The relationship between Tess and Alex, I think, is, it's quite believable in the sense that they're quite sort of chilled out people. And the thing that's keeping them together really is the fact that they both have kids, and the love that they have of their kids cuts through their differences. And I think the writing and the direction is quite, is good at communicating that. I don't know why Bradley Cooper decided to play this sort of like irritating pseudo, like,
yeah, he loves playing a quite intense, grating character, doesn't he?
Yeah, I don't know why he did this. This sort of like pseudo spiritual person. I was just like, it's quite annoying, and I wasn't really, I wasn't convinced by the friendships as a whole. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like when they're sat in that stylish hipster New York loft apartment, and there's like, they're all sat around, and I'm like, how could all of you guys, because you all clearly don't really like each other.
Yeah. But I suppose that's kind of one point, it feels like it's trying to say, oh, a lot of relationships in our life that we go through, and we're all like trying to convince ourselves that we have them for a reason, but actually when we peel back the curtain, I just feel there's a lot of things that it was trying to do but didn't necessarily feel right.
This is literally what I was just about to say. It was like, I'm not convinced by that dynamic, that group dynamic, but then at the same time it doesn't do enough to extrapolate that. And the sort of the thing that was supposed to sort of communicate that idea is the stand-up, the fact that Will goes and pursues something completely different, completely detached from his everyday. Those moments when he's with the comedy circle, the comedy cellar, I think it's called, I think is the funnest bit of the film. The film when he's doing the actual stand up. The rest of it,
because I think that the film does ride on this whole premise of the story of a guy who was going through a divorce, walks into a comedy bar and just signs up and gets up and therefore becomes a stand up. It's an interesting story, but I don't think how it was then fleshed out doesn't feel that believable. And I agree with what you're saying there. That's why that bit feels like actually the most intriguing and engaging bit, because that's the only bit that felt kind of real, and that's kind of because it was.
Yes. Yeah, no, indeed, exactly. It's a little bit too long for me, and I hate that critique. I hate saying, I thought it was a bit long, because it's just kind of like, it's just like, what can you do? It's like, it's like basically someone says a film's a bit too long. It's just kind of like, I don't really have an opinion about it.
Sure.
I'll just say it was too long.
With that.
Because the lack of the sort of the jazzy underscore just doesn't. It felt quite laboured in places. I was like waiting for it to get going, or waiting to feel excited about what he's doing. Like, you're supposed to feel excited that this guy is sort of reinventing himself or pursuing something else. And I never really, there was little glimmers where I was like, I'm interested. But then it was just like, then it was brought back to his other part of his life. Maybe that's what the point of the film's making. Like, maybe that's Cooper's direction, like emphasizing the glimmers of excitement in a time in someone's life where there isn't much. Maybe that is what the film is trying to communicate.
And I get that. I just don't think there's enough of interest for people, because then it's kind of saying, the stand-up helped him then express himself, and helped him and his partner then actually be honest with each other and realise who they were. And it's like, I get that, but it's also, it comes back to the whole point of why is this film interesting? It's because of this like quirky story, and the stand-up has to carry a lot of that. And I don't know whether people care enough about stand-up in the sense to be like, oh, that's interesting. And like, it's at one part pandering to people who are fascinated by this world of underground stand-up, and that's done really well and it's interesting, but it's like, how can we tag a story to this that's a bit more meaningful? And it doesn't stick. Like, the relationships he forms when doing stand-up feels a bit more raw and authentic, and that's an intriguing area to go down. Then it's like, let's stick this extra story on, which is kind of like, yeah, fine.
But then again, like, I would have quite liked for those relationships to be explored a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because that if this is the thing that's going to revitalize his life, then I'm not really interested in the marriage.
Because
I'm more interested in what comes after.
And it cheapens it slightly, like how it's going, like, the friendship and then their relationships and stuff. It's like, I get how it's trying to say, like, this was then him being more vocal and it led to more expression and there's all of that. But in many ways, you want the film just to be about the stand-up and the community around that, rather than that being the part of it that leads to then what just feels like a bit more like an American relationship film.
Yeah. I mean, I was never really The only relationship I was convinced by, I suppose, was Tess and Alex's, just because
Yeah.
that there's jeopardy there. The rest of the characters I found just, apart from the people in the comedy group, the rest of them are just, I don't know, what's the point in you even being here?
If you're
Like,
trying to say, like, oh, they're the only two who are able to be genuine and express themselves, and that representation comes through the stand-up. But again, it's trying to then tag on meaning to what is the original cause of this film. It's to tell this quite quirky story of a guy who got into stand-up because he was going through a divorce and then just stumbled into a bar and got up there. It's like, that's where I think it struggles, is it doesn't quite know what it is. And I think the wider narrative dilutes the intrigue and potential depth of the whole stuff around the stand-up. And you're like, the attraction of the film hinges on the stand-up, and the most impactful bits are around the comedy bar. The rest of it then just feels like, you know, any other Adam Sandler film where he's gone off and done something, and I think that's coming clear to me now. Is like, oh right, yeah, that's the hook of the film, but then what it does with the hook waters it down.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And not that I think the notion of exploring the relationship isn't fascinating, because I think those things work together, but there's kind of too much there. And it's just the whole identity of the film is not quite clear. And that's why I think it just leaves you not really getting much depth of anything.
Well, I mean, I would like to, mention that Cooper's direction, like the camera work, there's a lot of, I went to see it in the Curzon in Camden, and those screens are quite small. The big screens themselves are big, but the actual places there's not that many seats in there, so you end up feeling a little bit like a meerkat, where you're just like looking up at this massive screen, and then, depending on where you sat, I mean, your eyes might start to bleed a little bit.
What an image!
Always, visceral. But it's very close. The camera is so close to everybody's face, especially Will Arnett's, and it feels quite claustrophobic. And and it's quite the handheld. It's all handheld, I think, quite shaky in places. There's an element of sort of like, not amateur's the wrong word, but kind of like sort of like a DIY indie sort of
absolutely, and I
feel
think
to it.
That works absolutely for that element of the stand-up stuff. But it's kind of then two films, because it's then this a bit more generic American relationship film, especially when they go away to that house. It's like, all right, I like the independent film-esque feel of the stand-up, and it's got tight on the face, and that idea is meant to be, it's all about the emotion and expression of the person who's performing. But like, it just feels like a separate film than to the rest of it.
I do think Will Arnett, though, as the character, is quite good, because he's got that sort of deep, gravelly kind of like booming voice that I think makes the content of the stand-up quite funny. Because there's the scene when he's talking about the size of he's talking about the size of his appendage, and and then he looks up to one of his friends, one of his colleagues on the rafters, and there's that sort of back and forth. But it kind of works because he's this sort of like 6 foot kind of like, not necessarily a pathetic man, but he's quite masculine, isn't he? Like, he's a fully grown man. I need to stop slipping into metaphor and innuendo very quickly.
Let's steer away. It's not that kind of podcast.
No, indeed. But it works. The stand-up works because he's being quite self-deprecating, which is why there's flickers of good stuff in there throughout. I just think it was just a little bit as a collective, like as a fully finished piece, it was a little bit forgetful, which is what you were saying off mic, wasn't it?
Yeah, I get that. And like I said, I felt at the beginning of this review I was slightly in danger of putting it down too much. And I want to be clear that I think there's a lot of goodness of the film, and actually I did quite enjoy watching it, but I think a lot of that is down to it's a good premise, and the element of the comedy club and the stand-up within it and the way that's shot and the story's told via that is very compelling, and the relationships in that, his journey throughout that. I really like the scene where his wife comes along to watch him and then she's on a date, because it kind of goes in a direction that you don't really expect, and that's, I think, captures the element of what they're doing in the film, where, as you say, it's not this classic breakup shouty film. There's actually more realness to it, and there's subtlety to it, but I just think the rest of the film just feels a bit padded out without too much depth to it. And as I said to you earlier, if this film was a meal that you'd gone out for, you'd need to go to the chippy afterwards, because you wouldn't be full after it. And it was like that. Like, it was a nice meal, but there just wasn't enough substance to it.
There was a funny you mentioned that, because I remember when I was in Los Angeles, not podcast related, actually. Thought I'd get that in there.
Yeah.
We went to it was an end of a West Coast road trip. I was 20 years old, and we were sat with Haley, actually, and Alex, and like Kuba was there as well, and Rob, and there was just an element of okay, we're at the end of something now. So we went to a really fancy restaurant, and it was like small pieces of pasta.
Yeah.
And I couldn't afford anything else on the menu.
Sure.
And I was like, I am still hungry here.
Yeah.
So we went to McDonald's afterwards.
And that restaurant is this film.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Quite nice to look at. But, I mean, New York is always going to look good on film. I quite like the sort of the bustle of the scene in New York, even though it started in Los Angeles.
The idea of the New York bar feels very attractive and alluring.
I do love it. Yeah, I mean, I've been to New York once. I do need to go back. But I do remember being in a couple of New York bars, thinking this is cool. I love American bars, though. They're a different beast. I like sitting at the bar with a PBR and a bourbon, talking to an expert who knows everything about nothing.
Yeah.
Usually a bartender. I love it. I absolutely love it.
The joy of sitting at a bar. Magical.
Yeah, exactly.
Magical. Well, let's wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
I think we've covered a lot there and already rounded a lot off, but I just want to re-emphasise what I said at the beginning. I don't want to slam the film too much, because I think there's a lot of redeeming qualities in it, especially the story that it's based upon and how that's adapted and everything towards the comedy club. But in many ways, I kind of wanted, once I'd seen that, I wanted a film about the comedy club and what that then gave him and his relationship, but based more in the comedy club, whereas it goes on to this other thing which doesn't quite work or slot together, and in the end it leaves you with something that doesn't feel like it has enough depth or intrigue to it. So a lot of goodness, but then the rest of it that wasn't the good part, I feel felt very flat, and that limits what I feel I can give to the film. So I'm going to give it 5 out of 10. It was relatively forgettable. It was fine, an interesting story to be based on, but I still think there was a lot to be built on. And I'd be intrigued to see what Bradley Cooper does as a director in the future, because you could definitely see the vision via the style, especially with the stuff in the comedy club. I just don't think the whole film works as an entire piece. But that's what I'm going for, Callum. What about you?
I'm going to give it 6 out of 10, just because I quite liked I quite like the arc of it, I suppose. I like the idea and the premise of it. It wasn't necessary. The reason why I'm giving it 6 out of 10 was because I found it quite refreshing to watch essentially what a film is. It's a breakup film, and for it not to be this sort of like annoying shouting match, it just showed a different sort of side of what breakups can be.
Lovely.
6 out of 10. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And there we have it. That was our review of Is This Thing On? Thank you, Callum, once again for joining me. And as I mentioned in the last episode, all our episodes now are going to be on YouTube. So if you're not already watching or listening to this on YouTube, you can head over to YouTube. If you go into the Glacé Media YouTube page, will be on there. The full podcast on, as well as behind the scenes clips of the Glacé Film Club. We'll be posting them on there, as well as on our Instagram and TikTok, which is at the Glacé Film Club. We do always appreciate it if you've liked what you've been listening to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, now on YouTube. Please share your thoughts. Let us know what you thought about the film as well, and let us know what you thought about our thoughts of the film. We want to get into those discussions. We love a chat about film. Of course we do. But that is that. Until next time, that was another episode of the Glacé Film Club podcast. We'll see you all later.